It is 5 o'clock on May 19th, 2025, and I now call to order the Beaverton Urban Redevelopment Agency Budget Committee meeting. Call to order. Recorder, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair. Um, Committee Member Mandeep Bawa. Not sure if, I believe I saw him, but I'm going to mark him here and then we can come back. Lacey Beatty.
I'm here. I'm off camera because I'm commuting back from Salem.
Okay, thank you. Oswaldo Bernal.
Here.
Dylan Ballard. John Duggar.
I'm here.
Corinne Hanning.
Here.
Ashley Hartmeyer Prigg.
Here.
Nadia Hassan.
Here.
Michael Hughes.
Here.
Edward Kimmy.
Here.
Christopher Korenthal.
Here.
Eric Lair.
Here.
Adam Marion.
Here.
Donaciano Mejia Hernandez. Jennifer Nye. Rhonda Reister. I apologize if I'm saying this incorrectly, Rick Skyhan.
Here.
Kia Sundberg, and I apologize if I said that incorrectly.
Here, and you were very close. You did great.
Thank you. Kevin Teeter.
I'm here.
Allison Tivnon.
Here.
Sarah Walton.
Here.
And Amy Webb.
Here.
Thank you.
And Recorder, I think we had a couple of extra people join. I think Jennifer and I might have joined.
Thank you. I'll make a note of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everybody. The next order of business is described in Agenda Bill 01-2025, which is to elect a Budget Committee Chair. In the interest of time, and given that this is the only Bureau Budget Committee meeting this year, I propose that we do not elect a Vice Chair for a single meeting. But if anybody objects, you can please indicate by raising your hand right now, or put your name in the chat so that I can call on you. And if nobody objects, we'll just go ahead to a committee chair. So I'll pause for just a moment. If anybody wants to elect a vice chair, you can put your hand up or type your name in the chat and I'll get to you. Okay, we'll move forward then. In a moment, I will open the floor for any budget committee member to nominate themselves or another committee member to be budget committee chair. The nominee may be any member of the budget committee, and there's not a need to second a nomination, but the person nominated may decline the nomination. So you can nominate yourself, and if nominated, you can also vote for yourself. Nominations stay open until no one else makes any further nominations. After I close the floor for nominations, we will vote by roll call on each person in the order the nominations were made. The first person who receives 12 or more votes, majority of the budget committee members, is elected to the position. I will now open the floor for nominations for Bureau Budget Committee Chair. And if you have a nomination, please put your name in the chat and I will call on you. I will go ahead and make one nomination. Board Member Lair, I would nominate you to be Budget Committee Chair if you are open to it. Okay, I see a head nod and thumbs up. Are there other nominations anybody would like? Okay, I'm seeing none. Hearing no more nominations, I will now close the floor for nominations for Bureau Budget Committee Chair. City Court Recorder, will you please conduct a roll call vote for Board Member Lair?
Yes, Chair. All right. Mandeep Bawa, Beatty,
Yeah, approve.
Yes.
Bernal,
Yes.
Ballard, Duggar,
Yes.
Hanning,
Yes.
Hartmeyer Prague,
Yes.
Hassan,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Yes.
Kimmy,
Yes.
Horenthal,
Yes.
Lair. I'm not sure if he can vote for himself. I apologize. If he can.
Yes, he can vote.
Okay, thank you. Marion,
Yes.
Mejia Hernandez. I believe he had just joined. I'm not sure if he's settled in. Nye,
Yes.
Reister, Skyhan,
Here, yes.
Sundberg,
Yes.
Teeter,
Yes.
Tivnon,
Yes.
Walton,
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. And just for the record, Board Member Lair, you did vote yes? Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, well, we made it through the first part of the agenda, and I will now turn it over to your Budget Committee Chair, Eric Lair.
Great. Thank you, Chair Teeter. First order of business. Is there a motion to approve the May 13th, 2024 Bureau Budget Committee minutes?
Yep, Counselor Hudson here. I'll make the motion.
Hartmeyer Prague, I second.
All right, so motion made by Councilor Hassan, seconded by Councilor Hartmeyer Prigg. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Recorder, can we please move to a vote on approval of the minutes? Just a reminder, if you are new or if you weren't here last year, our preference is that you would abstain on this motion.
Yes, Chair. Bawa,
Yes, approve.
Beatty,
Yes.
Bernal,
Yes.
Ballard, Duggar,
Yes.
Hanning,
Abstain.
Hartmeyer Prague,
Yes.
Hassan,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Kimmy,
Yes.
Horenthal,
Abstain.
Lair,
Yes.
Marion,
I will abstain.
Mejia Hernandez,
I will abstain.
Nye,
Excuse me, abstain.
thank you. Reister, Skyhan,
Yes.
Sundberg,
Yes.
Teeter,
Yes.
Tivnon,
Yes.
Walton,
Yes.
and Webb.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Recorder. The next item on the agenda is described in Agenda Bill 02-2025 regarding the consideration of the proposed Bureau budget for fiscal year 2025 through 26. We will start with the Bureau budget message brought to you by the Bureau Executive Director, Andy Varner, and the Bureau Treasurer, Debbie Lochner. Mr. Varner and Ms. Lochner, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I believe we'll have a slideshow up momentarily to go over the budget message. Okay, I'm seeing it on my screen, so I assume everyone else is. So good evening, everybody. I'm Andy Varner, the Executive Director of the Beaverton Urban Redevelopment Agency. I'll go over some of the highlights and give you an overview of the urban renewal activities this past fiscal year and what's ahead for the next fiscal year. And then in the second half, Debbie Lochner of the Bureau Treasurer will be giving you the more in-depth financial information for Bureau. So go to the next slide, please, David. Everything we do in Bureau is based upon the Central Beaverton Urban Renewal Plan that was passed by voters in 2011. That's the framework for all of our activities and projects that have to take place in the Central Beaverton area, our urban renewal area, also called a district. What the plan did in 2011 defined the boundaries of our district, it determined the amount of the maximum indebtedness that we could borrow over the life of the plan. It also lays out the guiding goals and the allocation percentages of our activities, and we'll go over that allocation here in a moment. The funding, I think we all know this, funding primarily comes from tax increment financing, or TIF, where a portion of property taxes are gathered within the boundaries. Next slide, please. The plan had 7 goals that you can see here. I'm not going to read every word there in the interest of time, but you can see that there's a mix of areas and programs where we do everything from promoting public art to enhancing our existing and future transportation system, offering various programs for business and entrepreneurial support, increasing and enhancing the housing stock, and redeveloping properties or other core goals of the plan. And then about every urban renewal plan has a goal to increase and add assessed value in the district that helps to spur more momentum and more investment in the district. Okay, next slide, please. According to the plan, these are the 5 spending allocations that voters adopted throughout the 30-year life of the plan. And about half of that goes to transportation and infrastructure improvements to enhance redevelopment activities in the district. And joint investment is a lot of business supports and areas where we encourage and enhance activities for our business community. And then the remaining percentages are debt servicing, other incentives, and then some community identity and placemaking. Next slide, please. No urban renewal presentation would be complete if you didn't have a graph like this describing your tax increment financing, or the TIF. So since the plan was adopted in 2011 and the tax base was frozen in 2012, the assessed value in the district has grown by 70%. And the increment revenue has grown by 83%. And the increment revenue is what you see in those green bars with a little bit of red here towards the tail end. And what is that red? Well, in this budget year, we're proposing to underlevy the property taxes for Bureau. That means we won't be levying and collecting the full property tax increment that's authorized for Bureau. So that gives a piece of the incremental growth back to the city's general fund and also to our regional partners. Underlevying the property tax is a tool at a city's discretion that provides the opportunity to return a portion of property tax increment to our overlapping jurisdictions. And even though this shows going out to FY30, I believe, or we may be under levying, it's an annual budget decision, and it's not something that's done automatically every year. So Debbie will talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, here are some accomplishments, and those that are on the Bureau board or associated with Bureau a lot of this will sound familiar to you. I won't read out everything on the screen, but a few of the highlights, and especially if you go back and read the minutes from last year, there were questions about program income. So the Bureau board adopted a policy on the sources and uses of Bureau program income, which will unlock various programs and activities for Bureau moving forward. We restarted a program known as the Downtown Beaverton Sub-Basin Strategy, and that's going to be a partnership with Clean Water Services to implement a program to, again, help unlock redevelopment with kind of creative and innovative uses of stormwater management. We continued implementing the downtown parking management and action plan and on-street pilot parking compliance program. We're a couple years into that. And we have an action plan with several activities and actions to follow so we can further the enforcement downtown and help our business community and help turnover and parking management overall. The Building Improvement Program, BIP, will award approximately 20 building improvement grants to help to assist our businesses and help our building stock. And the last one is we're approving, the Bureau board approved initiating the design for a semi-permanent First Street Dining Commons configuration on First Street, which will be a key placemaking activity moving forward. Okay, next slide, please. Here's a little bit about a couple market rate projects called Modera Raleigh Hills, Modera Beaverton. Two projects with nearly 600 housing units total. These are private market rate housing developments completed this year without any Bureau funding assistance. Raleigh Hills is a 270 unit development located on the eastern portion of the district on Western Avenue. And Modera Beaverton includes 312 units. And both of these are pursuing LEED certification. Modera Beaverton is located on Broadway Street, close to the transit center, and includes a range of studios to 3-bedroom units, 4,000 square feet of ground floor retail, and structured parking. And that photo there is a tour that our Urban Renewal Advisory Committee and a few Bureau board members took at the Modera Beaverton project a couple months ago. Next slide, please. Bureau adopted a portfolio redevelopment strategy in 2023. So implementing that redevelopment strategy has been a key goal for this fiscal year. And what you're seeing here is the Lombard West site redevelopment opportunity. That's 2 acres located near the Beaverton Transit Center. We were awarded a $500,000 pre-development grant from Metro to undertake some pre-development activities to get that site ready for solicitation. And we'll seek high density mixed income housing, so both affordable and market rate housing with open space, and the Bureau will be participating in that to help with some of the affordable housing unit configurations. As an overview, we released the developer solicitation earlier this year in January. We had 6 responses, went through the scoring and the interviews, and we expect Bureau to entertain a selection at their meeting in June. So that's an exciting project. Next slide, please. Not too far from the Lombard West site is the Hall and Center site redevelopment. You can see that there in the image. That's where the old Buffet Palace is located. That's about 1.5 acres. And again, we're seeking mid to high density mixed use housing with ground floor active use. We are currently in the midst of a developer solicitation that was released last month in April. And we have developer responses due June 19th. And with the summer break coming up, we're expecting the Bureau selection at the September meeting. Next slide, please. Public art was another accomplishment this year. That's the Ripple installation you're seeing there on the Crescent Trail. That's across the street from the Research Center for the Arts, and it's a complimentary piece that is out front of the Research. So that was installed a few months ago, and we want to give a big shout to our Public Works department who really helped with that installation in some very frigid days. I think it was in February or March. So if you haven't seen that, that's a beautiful piece of art, especially at night when it's lit up. Next slide, please. I talked a little bit about the programs we have for joint investment and business enhancement. So the Building Improvement Grant Program, we call it the BIP. That's for businesses in our specific sub areas of the district. We've awarded 11 building improvement grants to date this fiscal year, and we have a few more rolling in before the end of the fiscal year. That's the Dos Hermanos Bakery, TI, tenant improvement in progress there on the left. That's a business located on Broadway. And the Critical Home Repair Program is really about repairing and keeping our housing stock in good shape within the district, especially for improvements for low-income residents and preserving our affordable housing. And you can see the range of repairs that this program supports. Next slide, please. If you remember, 48% of our allocation is for transportation and infrastructure. So here are a few of the projects that Bureau activities supported this year. The Loop in Western Avenue were our big funding allocations for Bureau, and Canyon Road pedestrian enhancements will provide a match to. Milliken Way improvement, we're expecting that full design to be adopted in the next fiscal year. And of course, the shelter is in Bureau. It's not a Bureau funded project, but a very important one nonetheless for the community within the district. Okay, next slide, please. So I'll briefly go through a few of the budget priorities for this next fiscal year. We're just building off of the Bureau 5-year action plan that was adopted a couple years ago. And I'll go through the three strategic priorities that were adopted in the action plan. Next slide. Capital infrastructure support is a high priority, and you can see the various activities and programs that we'll be focusing on. Several of these I've already spoken about, and since these are multi-year efforts, it's no surprise that they would occur again in the next fiscal year. I guess a big one will be starting design work on the Downtown Loop demonstration project. And hopefully, if we get some federal funding unlocked through a previous earmark, we can work on the fuller concept plan, the master plan of the Loop project in the Railroad Quiet Zone. One thing to note with infrastructure is that we're adding an infrastructure coordinator position through Bureau this year to help coordinate and track and implement the various pieces that you see here. In the placemaking and community identity priority, we'll do some district concept planning on arts and innovation. And I think a lot of the First Street Commons activities will play into that priority as well. And then the third budget action plan priority will be a strategic investment. And then you can see the list of activities that we have here, from real estate acquisitions, our site redevelopment, looking at refined incentive programs, and then continuing property management of our Bureau properties. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, that ends my term for the first half, and now Debbie Lochner, the Bureau Treasurer, will present the budget financial information, and we'll take any questions at the end.
All right, good evening, folks. So if you go to the next slide, we'll briefly an overview of the budget. So our revenue is about almost $19 million, and our expenditures are a little over $25 million. So that includes, in the revenues, we assume that we are borrowing some money to further the The action plan, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, but that is assumed in the budget. In order to continue furthering the initiatives, we do need to borrow more money. And so this just shows you kind of a breakdown of the overall revenues and expenditures. Our largest expenditure for Bureau is our capital outlay, which is appropriate because we need to build things to build the increment so that we can continue to finance the initiatives that we're working on. So if you go to the next slide, overall, Bureau has 5 different funds. The tax increment fund is where we receive the revenue from property taxes. Tax increment fund can only fund debt service payments. And that's again why we have assumed a bank loan this year. And this budget also is proposing to under levy the amount of property tax increment that we can collect. So overall, the under levying, it is a year by year thing. It's not once you do it doesn't mean you have to do it every year. It's a consideration each year. But so what it means is we're not levying the full amount of taxes that we could levy. And that's because we don't have enough debt to pay for it. So we would end up stranding our increment because we can't use it unless we have debt to pay with it. So for this year, we propose to under levy the tax increment. This is a tool that is at your discretion, and it provides an opportunity to return a portion of that tax increment that we have grown in the area back to our partner agencies. It's an annual budget decision and is not done automatically every year. So overall, we are recommending that we under levy the taxes because we have, if we did not do that, then we would end up with more money in the fund than we could actually spend. If you go to the next slide, our capital projects fund. So you can see that we have got some proceeds from loans here. And that is to accomplish our overall, it includes some property acquisition and includes a loop demonstration projects and some other transportation projects, like Andy said, some design work and inspection. And so overall, we haven't changed what's expected in construction, but you can see our contingency is going down significantly, and that is because we are proposing to begin construction on those projects. If you go to the next slide, fund number 3, the Bureau Program and Activities Fund. This is where the property management expenses are for us to manage Bureau's acquired properties. This also includes the Business Improvement Grant Program and the Downtown Equity Strategy implementation. This budget also supports First Street Dining Commons management. And if you go to the next slide, here's the Debt Service Fund. So the Debt Service Fund is funded with transfers in from the Tax Increment Fund. And this is where we have where we pay for our bonds. So we accept our money into the Debt Service Fund and then it goes out to the capital fund to pay for things. And so the fund balance that we retain in our debt service fund is debt proceeds that we have not spent. So while we intend to spend them every year, things happen, and we currently are projecting to have about $5.4 million of bond funds from a bond we issued in 2020 to be spent in this fiscal year. The plan is to spend these funds on the loop in fiscal year 27. So that's a whole nother year away. So there's still some planning work to be done there. And then we would be using those bond funds. So if you go to the next slide, our Parking and Facilities Fund. So this is also funded with a transfer in, and you can see a small loan from the city in order to make it balance. So we needed to, this includes the parking garage operations and management. It includes the on-street parking compliance program, and it also includes the garage retail space rentals. So so overall, you can see our parking revenue it's it's expected to go down a little bit, but our garage revenue is going up. So, and overall, our parking fines are going up. We're being a little bit more active out there. If you go to the next slide, that's the end of what I have on the funds, and we're happy to take any questions you might have.
Andy and Debbie, thank you for the presentation. Before we move on to committee deliberations on the budget, we want to allow the public an opportunity to comment on the proposed budget. So I now open the public hearing on the Bureau budget. Tyler, has staff received any written comments on the budget?
We have received one letter. You, as a budget committee member, have received that letter from Ms. Dana BG. Otherwise, we've had 0 other public testimony. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. City Recorder, do we have anybody wishing to speak at the hearing? For anybody joining the meeting virtually that wishes to speak, please follow the instructions included on tonight's agenda. After each person speaks, council members may ask questions of the speaker. City Recorder, does anybody wish to comment?
No, Chair.
Okay. There appears to be no member of the public who wishes to comment on the matter. Does anybody on the committee have any questions of staff?
I do have a question regarding the design inspection bidding process for the loop. How many bidders did the city end up getting for that project?
Chair, would you like me to take this one?
Please.
Okay. I believe that was Budget Committee member Marion. Could you elaborate a little bit on what you mean by the design inspection for the project?
Yeah, so specifically, actually, let me look at my notes real quick, and then I'll get right back to you.
Okay. Problem.
While he's looking that up, Councilor Hassan?
I know Kia had her hand up if you want to go first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Kia, please go first.
Oh, it's really fine either way. Forgive me a little bit. I feel like I would like to dig in a little bit more as to why there's a need for a bank loan this year. I'm going through the materials. I don't feel like I have enough information in the packet. So if someone could just kind of walk me through that and kind of what the parameters with which the bank loan requires repayment, that would be really interesting to dig into.
Sure. So what we have projected is a bank loan in order to further some of the initiatives that are in the action plan. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to issue a bank loan. That just means we are planning for that in case we're able to get those initiatives to a point where we need to start funding them at a greater rate than what we have available. So we are planning for that because we're at the point where some of these initiatives are at the point where we're going to be starting to spend some money on those. Once you get into past design and into construction, the costs go up significantly. So we're just planning for some of those things that we've been planning on for the last couple of years to actually start moving forward and going into construction. So just because we have it in there doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen. And at the time, we will do a competitive bid on that bank loan. We'll be working with our financial advisors and our bond counsel to make sure that we do get the best deal for Bureau.
Okay, and a follow-up, if I could, on that. Is it necessary? Do we have to be moving forward at that pace if we're not quite ready funding-wise to be doing the work? Is there any mechanism with which to slow down so that we can give ourselves time to catch up without taking out a bank loan? Or has it always been planned that you would need a bank loan to kind of bridge the gap during this point in time?
So the funding source for Bureau is tax increment, and the only thing you can spend tax increment on is debt payments. So you have to borrow money in order to be able to spend that money. So we have to incur debt in order to spend it.
Thank you.
So just for consistency's sake, for people who do want to ask the question, please type your name in the chat, and that way I can call on you in the order that you enter your names in. So next we'll go to Councilor Hassan, and then after that, Committee Member Marion.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for this presentation. Two questions, and apologies if you addressed this. Sorry, I just need to pull up the page. I just had it and I think I lost it. Okay, I'll go to my second question. I am curious about like staff's response or perspective on the public comment we received, just so I can have some more context, because I know we're doing investment projects more on the First Street side and on the Loop side, but I was curious what thoughts are from staff.
Yeah, committee member Hassan, thank you for the question. I assume you mean the correspondence we received through email. Yeah, Tyler and I met with this property owner recently to kind of hear her out on some of these issues, so we completely understand things like parking on private property, and I think that's something that the city and Bureau and our other partners downtown can continually work on. So we stressed to her that we're committed to doing that. And there are some things that we can't always control, but if there's city employees or other activities here, we certainly can do that to be a good partner downtown. And then one of her other issues I know was related to a capital improvement project. The city acquired some right-of-way, and it wasn't Bureau, it was the city that acquired some right-of-way of her property a few years ago to move forward with the capital improvement project. I don't know the full history, but that project stalled out for a while. But from what I understand, it's part of the capital improvement fund to move forward as a funded project this next fiscal year as proposed. And so we'll continue to work with her and make sure that she's aware of those activities and you know, be a good neighbor within the district.
Okay, thanks. And then I know the First Street Dining Commons is an approved like program. Where would I find that in the budget, or is that just kind of within the things, or what's like the estimated cost of that per year?
Debbie, can you remind me the fund where that would be, the named fund? And off the top of my head, I believe it's about $180,000 per fiscal year for the operations and maintenance.
So it's in program and activities fund.
Okay.
But it's not called out separately.
Okay. I think those are my questions for now. Thank you.
Committee Member Marion.
Thank you. When I was referencing specifically line items 683, construction design and engineering inspection, $6.75 million have been outlined as cost proposal in 2026. Is this design and engineering inspection going to be done by city engineers, or did we bid to other contractors to do this design and inspection line item?
Thank you, Committee Member Marion. That's a project that has not gone out to bid yet. So yes, there will be a public bidding process and procurement for that.
So I guess the secondary question is, the number seems very specific. And so what is being exactly allocated for your bid framework for 2026 under that $6.75 million number?
I believe that's going to be specific to a demonstration project on Hall Street. So there's a couple blocks of a demonstration project where the city received federal funding to undertake those activities. And so if you see a specific number, that represents the city, meaning Bureau's contribution to that project to match the federal funding.
And then the last question, there was a contingency of $2 million in federal grant funds. Is this considered in this 2026 budget, or would it be considered in a 2027 budget for the Loop project?
I'm trying to find the contingency you're referring to, but what we have proposed for 2026 is, like I said, the city of Beaverton or Bureau's contribution for that federal match. We don't anticipate exceeding that, but that's why the contingency is there. I will say there is other federal investment work that we can be doing on the loop. Right now, it's frozen, and it's not been authorized for spending to the city yet. And so part of that contingency could go to that work, because any federal money we receive, Bureau is going to be contributing a match to that work downtown.
Thanks. I think I saw the federal grant mentioned in the fiscal year 2026 highlights, but I can't remember exactly. So would that federal grant be reflected in within this budget framework?
Well, if that's what the contingency is referring to, and Debbie can correct me if I'm wrong, but the contingency is there to be spent. You just have to allocate it during the course of the fiscal year, but it's there in case we do receive a grant.
Okay, thank you. I yield the floor.
We had a question that came in the Q&A box, and then I'll go to committee member Webb, but I'll read this, Andy and Debbie, for you. So the funds that are earmarked for the dining commons, have we done extensive data collection regarding the traffic that utilizes that area?
Thank you, Chair. I would not say we've done extensive data collection on the traffic impacts there, but once the budget is adopted, we'll certainly start the design work beginning this summer. And that will include not only engagement and then leading to ultimate design work, but also looking at our existing conditions. I'd have to get back to to this committee about what the traffic data may look like, but we'll certainly be taking stock of what exists there, from parking to our current infrastructure and everything there.
Committee member Webb.
Thank you. I guess this is a question for, well, I'm not sure for whom, maybe Andy, but I was curious about the decision to under levy and then like projections going forward for a couple of years to do the same. Is there anything we can interpret or about perhaps like the pace of spending or risks to being able to spend out resources with that decision, or can you just share more context for the decision making around that? What does it mean?
So sure. Overall, what we looked at, and we actually had our financial advisors look at it as well, is how much money do we need that can we actually spend in debt service, with the thought of issuing a bond in the next 2 or 3 years as well, and looking at that cash flow needs, and even issuing a bond in say 2027 with another $2 to $3 million debt service. We still have enough right now in our tax increment to cover that. And the issue being, the limiting factor is the total debt that we can issue on the area of $150 million. And so overall, looking at the end of the program, if you've issued all $150 million and you have leftover money after you've paid off that debt, you then have to go back and refund it to all the taxing entities, which is a huge administrative burden. So in doing that analysis, we determined that we don't need all the money right now. And it's a year by year decision to say what can we get accomplished in the next year, and then how much money do we need to cover that? And I'll let Jenny go ahead and finish.
Thank you. I'm Debbie. I'm just going to jump on your last words. I think what's really important for the board to hear today, or the budget committee, is that it's year over year we would look at this. It's not guaranteed that we would do this every year. Situations change, and so we want to look at that as kind of just an extra tool in our tool belt whether it's appropriate for us to under levy. And so each year we'll evaluate whether that makes sense and bring that recommendation forward. And you may see that there may be a year where it doesn't make sense for us to do it. And it's important that our partners know that too, because just because we under levy one year does not mean it makes sense for the next year. So my point to you all is that we look at that pretty carefully. We'll only make that recommendation if it makes fiscal sense.
Thank you both.
Councilor Hartmeyer-Prigg.
Thank you, Chair. I actually have a procedural question. Since this is a public meeting, we don't typically put questions in the chat or use the Q&A function. And so I don't know if City Attorney can give guidance. I'm not trying to call anyone out. It's just that we are supposed to be on the record. And so I'm curious if we need the person who asked the question about traffic collection to disclose who asked the question.
It would be advisable to disclose who asked the question, but it is part of the public hearing because the public hearing is still open. So the question itself and the answer are still part of the hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Committee Member Marion.
Another item regarding 651 property acquisition for 2026, the $5 million allocation is that for the Buffet Palace property or which property specifically that was outlined in the presentation earlier, or is it just general fund if an opportunity pops up?
Yeah, committee member Marion, that's the latter point is correct. It's there as a placeholder to acquire strategic properties if and when they may arise within the district. And in a case like that, that's where you may need to go for a bank loan or some other financing tool.
And so is that the general anticipation of using bank loan as if we have a property acquisition opportunity? Because that's the second biggest line item I see in this budget proposal.
Yeah, typically in urban renewal districts, your infrastructure projects are a big line item, and then also property acquisitions. So things related to infrastructure and then redevelopment are typically what you're going to borrow money for.
Final question in regards, is there a way to split out what would be already planned projects versus what would be an opportunity cost if we didn't allocate in the budget? Because the proposal's $5 million and then the construction and design, but we have no idea exactly what that might be earmarked or how it could be approved for purchase when a property decision does come up.
Yeah, committee member Marion, any property acquisition goes through a process within the city and Bureau to finalize a property acquisition within the district. So there will be a public process and a procurement procedure followed.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Okay, before we begin deliberations on the proposed budget, we need a motion to approve the fiscal year 2025 through 26 budget as submitted. Is there such a motion?
Yes, Chair, I move that we approve the 2025-2026 Bureau budget as submitted.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so moved by Councilor Hartmeyer-Prigg, seconded by Councilor Duggar. Is there any discussion on the motion? If you desire to make an amendment to the proposed budget, staff is here to help us through the project or the process. If you have any questions, please use the type your name in the chat.
Sorry, I didn't type my name, Eric. This is Sarah. I just have a quick question around, was there any consideration on the tariff? I know it's kind of up and down and a little all over the place, but just in the budget, again, I'm fine with the motion. I was just kind of curious what the process is going to be if all of a sudden some of the capital projects are up by a lot because of steel and, China imports. So I was just kind of curious what the process is planned for the city staff on that. Thank you.
Chair Lair, this is a new question and the public hearing has been closed. So I would recommend that if you're going to take additional questions from the committee, that you reopen the public hearing.
Sorry, you can ignore. Sorry.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry.
Board Member Walton's question has been withdrawn. Okay, any deliberation about the motion? Okay, hearing none, we are now ready to vote on the motion, which is to approve the proposed Bureau budget for fiscal year 2025 through 2026 as submitted. City Recorder, can you please take a roll call vote?
Chair Lair, I do think there was, in the chat box, I saw Councilor Hassan.
My apologies, Councilor Hassan.
I was going to just go on record to say I'm supportive of this budget. I want to thank the Bureau staff for doing the work. I do think that we want to make sure, because we did have a letter from one of our property owners in the area, that we're trying to always thoughtfully balance what different business owners and perspectives are there. I know staff knows that, but I just wanted to say that for the record. Thank you so much for your support. Chair Lair.
Chair, and I'll go ahead and I'll call roll. Committee Member Bawa?
Yes.
Beatty?
Yes.
Bernal?
Yes.
Duggar?
Yes.
Hanning?
Yes.
Hartmeyer Prigg?
Yes.
Hassan?
Yes.
Hughes?
Yes.
Kimmy?
Yes.
Korenthal?
Yes.
Lair?
Yes.
Marion?
Yes.
Mejia Hernandez?
Yes.
Nye?
Yes.
Reister? Okay, I see your thumbs up. Skyhan?
Yes.
Sundberg?
Yes.
Teeter?
Yes.
Tivnon?
Yes.
Walton?
Yes.
And Webb?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right, well, with that, the proposed Bureau budget for fiscal year 2025 through 26 was approved by this committee, and it'll be forwarded to the Bureau board for a public hearing on June 3rd, 2025. With that, we've completed tonight's agenda, so we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you all next year.